I just finished a trip down to the 10,000 Islands. This is my 6th trip down there with the West Coast Trailer Sailing Squadron. And usually I put a video together that shows the highlights of the trip, which I will be doing shortly. The purpose of my videos is mostly instructional and to encourage people to do the type of sailing that I do, which is namely dinghy cruising. I've been sailing for over 40 years. Presently, I sail on a trailerable sailboat. It's a 15-foot, 10-inch Wayfarer dinghy, and this is the most fun sailing that I think I've had, and it's why I want to encourage other people to do so. So in this video, what I thought I'd do is just go over some of the basic questions I get for people who are new to the 10,000 Islands or considering a trip, and they have a lot of questions and concerns, and I thought I'd address those. The two main things that I want to do in this video are just show you basically places that you can launch and keep a vehicle and trailer, which is always a big concern, and then different places you might want to go. I plan on looking at the area starting just south of Goodland, about in the neighborhood of Whitehorse Key or so, and all the way south, a little past Pavilion, down to about Plover Key. I'm choosing this area because this area is where most people are going to want to go. It has a number of good anchorages and places that you can go ashore with nice beaches. As you go farther south from here, the ability to land on shore get fewer and farther between. And while I have gone down as far south as the Cape and really enjoyed it down there, probably people who are new aren't going to want to do that. So what I plan on doing is first looking at the places to launch from north to south, and then at the different anchorages also from north to south. The places we're going to be looking at to launch from, there's really only a couple. We've got a couple in Goodland. There's a place up here called Port of the Everglades. We have 2 launches in Everglades City, really just one, and then down at Chokoloskee. So those are the places we'll look at for launching. When we come up to Goodland, if we zoom in here, most prominent on the map here is Goodland Boat Park. Goodland Boat Park is a great place to launch from, or at least it has been in the past. The sailing squadron has been sailing from there for almost since it opened. Unfortunately, last year, someone complained that they couldn't get a parking spot one day and complained enough to the county commissioners that they passed a law that you can't overnight park there anymore. So that kind of takes Goodland, at least for now, out of the mix for a multi-day trip down into the Keys. Again, unfortunate because it was a nice place to launch from. However, there is another option, and that's right kind of next door here. Let's zoom in a little closer. There you go. Safe Harbor, Chocolowski Island right here. This is a nice marina, has a nice ramp. We zoom in, look at that nice ramp, some docks here, you know, to go over to set up, etc. The only problem with it for me in the group I sail with is they can't accommodate larger groups. So if you're going by yourself or 1 or 2 people, they can probably take care of you. Their parking is at a premium. Definitely call in advance and make sure that they have room for you if you are going to use the Safe Harbor Chocolowski Island Marina in Goodland. Now, if you do launch at either of these places, the way to leave is really pretty straightforward. You just come down here. This is Hog Key Pass. And you are then out into Gullivin Bay here and have access to all of the 10,000 Islands, or going over to Cape Romana Shoals and the Cape Romana Dome homes. You can do that from here as well. So that's your first option, which is Goodland. Your next option is Port of the Everglades Park, and they do have a decent ramp that you'll be able to launch a small trailer sailboat from right here. Again, I don't know the rates right now. I actually haven't used this, and I'll show you why in a second. On my boat, I only have sail and oar. I do not use an outboard, and I rarely use the oars. My boat sails well. In order to leave from Port of the Everglades, you have to come down the Faka Union Canal here. And the length of that canal till you get to open water is over 4 miles, and it runs pretty much straight north-south. So unless you've got perfect winds kind of blowing from the east or the west, or northerly when you leave and southerly when you come back, it's a little problematic getting in and out of there without an outboard. And even with an outboard, it's a little bit of a boring kind of motor or sail up this long, skinny canal. It's only about 250 feet wide. So I have sailed with people that have used this. Again, if you've got an outboard, it's not a bad choice. It's especially a good choice, I guess, if you're going to sort of the middle of the area here, in and around Panther Key. It's a nice choice. Goodland is nice for the upper and middle keys to go visit as well. So that is the Port of the Everglades. Next option is down here in Everglades City. So Everglades City is a little bit farther southeast here. Everglades City and Chokoloskee are basically the last signs of civilization on the west coast of Florida, all the way down to Everglades National Park and Flamingo, and that's barely civilization. So you're on kind of the edge of the world here, right at the beginning of kind of Alligator Alley up here. So anyway, in Everglades City, again, if you're sailing, about the only option, and it's not a bad one, I've used it a couple of times now, is the Rod and Gun Club right here. The Rod and Gun Club has a ramp right here. There's lots of parking all around here for you. And if that's filled up, they'll send you over here or somewhere else. So they've got a nice property there. It's been there forever, since like the 20s or so. And they've treated us nicely every time I've gone there. The ramp isn't huge, but it's big enough. It's a tiny bit cumbersome to use. You got to kind of launch your boat and get around a corner onto the seawall here, to set up for the most part. But it's not that difficult. And like I said, we've been treated well there, very kindly, as long as you're good to them. If they are not there when you launch, you just launch, and they tell you to settle up when you come back, which at first you feel like they're going to feel like you're ripping them off, but they don't. They just expect you to settle up when you come back. Sometimes there'll be a chain across the landing there to encourage you to settle up. You come to the office here at the lodge. It's probably best to enter from this side over here, and the front desk is right as you come in there. They only accept check or cash. That's important. Don't expect to use your credit card there. But like I say, it's a pleasant place to set up. It's a pleasant place to launch. It's usually not that rushed, at least during the week when we normally launch. And then you go out down the Barren River. You only have about a half-mile run to get down the river. One of the things you want to pay attention to, though, are the tides and current in the river. They can be strong, and they're a little confounding, to be honest with you. You would think that after high tide that the water would then start to go out. It doesn't. It comes in for a long time, and that after low tide it would start coming in, and that's especially not true. It goes out for a long time, and it can be a little bit strong. So you might want to try to research that, but do play your comings and goings to be slightly after the high tide, or an hour or two after the high tide if you can for going out, and an hour or two after the low tide at Everglades City coming in, which, by the way, is about 2 hours behind Indian Key Pass, which is the next big tide station. So that's the launching out of the Rod and Gun Club. It's time to leave. You go down the Barren River, and then you have two choices. You can either go this way, which is out Indian Key Pass, which pretty much comes down. It's a fairly wide, straight pass out past Indian Key. And again, the only thing that would make that problematic is if you get the timing of the tide and the current wrong. You can get some pretty swift currents in here that, if they're against you, are hard to make way against unless you've got a really good wind. Your other option is to go out Sandfly Pass, and that's over here. When you come out of the river, you turn left, and then there's another little channel that goes down like this, and then it comes in through here and wiggles around, and you come out down here. That's a nice choice if you're going south from there, like to Pavilion Key, for example. Your other option besides Everglades City is Chokoloskee, and that's here, just down the road here, and this is the end of civilization. There is a ramp you can see right here. It's called the fishing hole, and you have to launch on the east side here. I haven't launched from here. A number of people have. It's not too bad. You do want to check the tide here. Low tide, it's kind of difficult. All this is very shallow water here. You kind of have to come out, kind of hug the shore here. And now you're in what's called Chocolowski Pass for departing. And again, look on your chart for the specifics on that. But you come out down here a little bit farther south than before. So if you're leaving from Chocolowski, well, not a bad choice if you're going, again, south or even the central keys. They're really not that far away. They can all be gotten to easily in a day if the wind is blowing and you're sailing. So those are the different places that you can leave from, and sort of the pros and cons of each of those. Again, for most boats, you can make them work. If you have a particularly wide boat like a trimaran, the Rod and Gun Club is not a good choice for you. But otherwise, most of these ramps should work for most trailerable boats, and definitely things like kayaks and canoes, of course, no problem. There's even more options for that. All right, now, where to go once you've launched? I'm going to, again, go from north to south here and look at the different anchorages. And I'll kind of either designate them as primary or secondary, which just means really good or just good places to go. And that's primarily based on, one, I'm only choosing places that you can anchor and get good protection in certain winds, and also that have nice beaches that you can go ashore on, because that's what most people are looking for. And again, there's not lots of those, but there's actually plenty to make your trip interesting. So starting up at the north or northwest here, and almost all these places I've been to. If I haven't, I'll tell you so. I might start all the way up here. This is Turtle Key to get your bearings. There's the Port of the Everglades launch there. Here's Goodland. It's close to Goodland. Just north of Turtle Key here, I have stopped here before. There is this nice sand spit here that gives you nice protection if the winds are definitely from the northwest or from the north or from the west or from the south. Very, very decent protection and decent beach to be up on. The only thing it wouldn't be good is from the northeast here or east. You wouldn't be protected. You'd be driven on the shore, so I wouldn't recommend it then. And you should pay attention to the bottom. It's a little nicer over here. It's a little bit more shelly over here. Just check your bottom when you're landing, or at least it was when I was there. West. But that's a nice little stop if you happen to be up in that area and you're looking for protection from that direction. Coming down next, we have Gullivin Key. Again, you can see, I'm using the satellite view here so you can see the beaches. Gullivan, there's a little bit of a possibility of anchoring up here. Again, to get protection from the northwest or the north or west winds or southwest winds like this, you'd be protected in there. So you've got some choice there. If you look at the bottom, though, you can tell it's kind of shallow for a ways out here. So on all of these anchorages, you really have to pay attention to the tide. It can be pretty big, 3 to 5 feet there. And because it's so shallow with these long sloping beaches, you can be aground for quite a ways out from the shore, which isn't a problem for most boats, but you want to make sure that you're floating in the morning or shortly thereafter when you want to get underway again. So you do have to learn to read a tide table and pay attention to your depths. There's a nice beach here on Gullivan to stay at. So you can see this is what I would call a very kind of almost prime location. You can tell by the dark green here that this is deep water here. and deep means at least 3 or 4 feet. So you're going to be able to sail up, and then it doesn't start to get shallow till right next to the shore here. So you're going to probably be able to bring your boat right up onto the shore, put your bow there, put an anchor out in the stern here, and be able to push off easily. Or if it's at high tide, anchor just off the shore, and your boat will, when the tide goes down, might just touch the ground at the bottom, or however you want. You're anchoring, you got to figure out yourself. But this is a nice place from an anchoring perspective. And again, this will give you protection from the west, from the southwest, northwest. When it starts to go north-northwest, you're losing your protection. I really don't like it when a wind blows across the beach like this, because that tends to take your boat and blow it kind of along shore like this without a stern anchor, and then with a stern anchor you've got your boat straining sideways and on the anchors, which is not good. It can pull them out. But for those other directions, I think this is a really, really good choice. Now, if you have real shoal draft, you can come up on this side also, in more southerly winds. And I've come around the back here on my boat. Again, not at low tide. I'm sure I would be aground, or probably be aground. But you can explore that to see if that's a viable location for your craft. What a nice little tucked-in space to be there. Boy, that would be hard to be upset in any wind there, just because it's protected on essentially all sides. What good information. All right, let's come down next to Whitehorse Key. Whitehorse Key, if you look at it, you would think that it would be called White Pelican, or Brown Pelican. But if you look at that, boy, this just looks so much like a pelican or a duck here. It's incredible. But I'm sure the shapes of these islands are constantly changing with storms, etc. Maybe when it was named, 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe it looked more like this, and it looked more like a horse head, which is likely. And a lot of sand, so it was white. But anyway, there's Whitehorse. It looks like a pelican. And boy, look at those nice sand beaches up there. Now, there's nice beaches here too, but I don't tend to like those. One, you can see there's a lot of shoal in front of there, so you're gonna have some problems coming in, especially when the tide's low. And generally, I don't like the anchorages that are exposed, out to the Gulf or to Gullivan Bay directly, because you're more exposed, and if the wind goes in that direction, you're gonna get wind and wave, that you don't want. But that's a possibility. If the wind was out of the northeast and strong, you might consider those beaches. But the prime beaches that most people are interested in anchorages are up here in the head of the horse or the duck or the pelican. And particularly on the northeast side here. Look at that deep water coming up there. It drops off pretty sharply. I was just there not even a week ago, 3 or 4 days ago I was here. And this is just a really nice beach to land on. Again, would be great protection from the west, from the southwest, even from the south it would be okay. If it gets southeast, no, or anything east would be bad. Northwest, maybe, but again, once you start to go north-northwest and it's blown across the beach, I'd say no. So I'd say anything basically from northwest, backing around all the way to south is going to be good for you for this anchorage. Now, the only downside about this anchorage is it's such a nice anchorage, and it's relatively close to Goodland here, where a lot of people launch from, a lot of powerboaters launch from. This is usually... or often, I should say, crowded. So during the day, there'll be lots of power boats there, and they're always very generous with their music, all sharing it with you for half a mile or more away. You can hear them. So this can be a little bit loud and boisterous that most people aren't looking for when they do this type of cruising. But a lot of those people go away in the afternoon, so if it clears out in the evening, it's a good place. Or if you go during the week and not during a holiday, you will find it empty like I did just the other day, so it would have been a great choice then. But that's really about the only bad thing I can say about it in the right wind conditions is it's popular and gets crowded. But a great place. Is definitely an A anchorage. As you come down Whitehorse, there is a little beach down here on the southeast corner. I stopped by that or went by that again just the other day. It's a nice little beach. Again, this would not be a bad place to come, again, from a northwest wind. Maybe if that other beach was crowded and the wind was good to anchor here, it wouldn't be a bad choice. The only thing I do not like about anchoring, especially in here, which technically you could do. The problem is this is a popular waterway. There's a lot of boat traffic coming through like this, and you'd want to be really close into shore. You wouldn't want your boat out in the channel in the middle of the night if someone happened to be coming through in the middle of the night or early in the morning to go fishing. And even if you weren't in the way, the boats coming and going, the noise, the wakes, you probably don't want it. I don't want to imply that it's so busy there's going to be a boat every 5 minutes, but if in the middle of the night, if 3 or 4 come by, you don't want to encumber them, and you don't want to be woken up by them. So I would consider that, and there's other options nearby. Over here on Hog Key, there's this little kind of open part in the middle. You can go from one side to the other. I have seen people, camp on this side over here, but this is very shallow water in front of here. If you're a kayak or canoe, it's not that big of a deal. For most sailboats, it is. Now, you can come in from the other side, down these 2 channels. And I haven't technically done this. I've actually looked at drone video of this that someone did when I was considering this anchorage, and it's very interesting. You can tell by the dark green water here that those channels are nice and deep. They're not going to dry out at low tide. So other than they'll block the wind, which getting in might be a problem, but it's nice otherwise. You're going to be very protected in there from wind of almost any direction. If I zoom in really close, you'll see there's a little sand beach here, and there appears to be more deeper water over on the north side than there is here on the south side. So there's room for a couple of boats to pull up and beach or anchor just off of there. And again, I've seen drone video and video of a group that had taken little canoes, little power canoes here, and did a nice little camping trip. And it's a sweet little spot. You'd be very protected there. So that's something to consider. Again, just the other day when we were out playing around over here, we landed on this beach also. This is on the southeast end of Hog Island. And this was really nice up in here. This is a lovely little place. Again, you can see the protection that it doesn't have. Good from the west, good from the southwest, good from the south. Once it starts to go northwest and north, probably not a good idea. Also no protection from the east. You'd be driven on shore. But once it comes around to the southeast, you're getting protection again because you've got this shape here. So it gives you protection in quite a wide arc of wind. And if you had wind that was backing and it was already southeast, you'd have protection the whole time that it was backing around till it got past northwest, heading toward north. So again, for a small group, 1 or 2 people, nice. Now, I'm sailing with a larger group. This last time I had a dozen boats all together. And this is traditionally a place that we've gone to, which is Panther Key. Now, the nice thing about Panther Key is just look at that long beach there. It's a nice beach. It's a really nice beach. You can anchor all along there. The prime locations are right in here, and if you've been paying attention, you probably already know why. Look at that dark green water coming all the way up there. That's a nice steep drop off there, which is mostly good. But boy, the other day I was there, I pulled up till the front was just about hitting the bottom, and the back of the boat was probably at 4 feet. So if you got off toward the back, you were in deeper water than you wanted to be almost. But that is a really nice, beach in terms of approaching. Downsides are, again, pay attention to the wind direction. Anything once you start to go northeast, east, southeast, great. But once you start to go south and all around, up to here, you've got that across the beach wind, which I really don't like anchoring in, unless I go slightly offshore and set an anchor and just swing, which is what you should do in that case. As you can see, it's really actually pretty exposed, in this direction. So if there's a lot of swell going on, even if the wind is switched, you still might have swell coming, and we did the other day. You still get a lot of swell on shore there for a while as it's calming down. So it can be a little bit bumpy over there. But check it out and see what the conditions are, because it is a wonderful beach. It's huge. Lots of people can be there. Nice sand. We always have a nice time when we go there. That's why historically our group has gone. Over on the other side, of the island, if the wind was coming from the northwest. Down at the southern end of the key here at Panther Key, there's definitely places to anchor, and probably the best is up in here. Here you have all these shoals here, which makes it a little more problematic. If you look here, this is actually shoaly here, but it actually isn't kind of like there. So if you get a little bit off, or if you get kind of anchor out just on the edge of it, you'll usually be off. Again, look at the timing of the tides to see when you'll be clear. Just to show you again how active our group is. This satellite photo is actually taken when we were there. That is part of my group. We were sailing there. I could name all those boats, and these ones near shore were aground for a little bit, but they got off, by 9 o'clock or 9:30, whatever it was. But I don't like to be aground because I like to go sailing, which is why if you come out here and zoom in very close, you'll see one little sailboat sailing, and that happens to be me. Just to show you how often I do love to go sailing. So I'm on Google Earth right now until they update this photo. And at the same time, I won't go there now, there was another photo taken at another time up in Dunedin where I sail, and I'm on that one as well. So for a while at least on Google Earth, I was shown sailing in two places at the same time. But that's just a funny aside. So there's Panther Key. Again, nice choice. I could talk about fun things to do around here, sail, etc., but that's not the purpose of this video. Let's keep coming down. Camp Lulu, people like to go to. I haven't. Again, it's got all this shallow water around it. I think there's a decent anchorage kind of in this area here, which would be okay. It's got a reputation for people coming and partying, being loud on it. I haven't experienced that, but I've just heard that from others. But again, check it out. It's a place to go. Oh, there's an important thing I need to tell you at this point. All of the keys I told you up until Panther Key are not in the Everglades National Park. They are in the 10,000 Islands National Wildlife Refuge. Now, the reason that that's important is twofold. Number one, you're not allowed to camp on the keys in the Everglades National Park without a reservation and a permit. You are allowed to camp on the keys in the Wildlife Refuge without a reservation and permit, or entrance into the park, which I'll talk about in a second. So for that reason, you have more flexibility in those first keys that I talked about. You can go there whenever you want. You can land whenever you want. You can camp on land if you want to, or on your boat, whichever you prefer. And you don't have to pay any additional fees to be there. So that's a plus there for some people on those. Now, once you go past Panther, you are now in the Everglades National Park, and there's a couple of restrictions. Number one, you're supposed to pay an entrance fee to the park, as if you had come through any other entrance point like Flamingo or anywhere else. I've never been asked to show proof of my entrance, that I had paid, but I always pay it because I want to support the park. I usually get an annual pass. I think it's $45. I got to double check. And I do work the system a little bit because we usually go in January for these trips. And if you buy your pass after January 1st, it doesn't expire to January 31st the next year. So I get at least 2 trips out of it. So I'm like, it's $20 or something, $25 a time. And that I gladly support the park, and I encourage you to do so also. You're also supposed to take an online boater course, which emphasizes the importance of, especially for power boats, not chopping up seagrass. It's not as much of an issue with the sailboats, but technically you're supposed to have that and have a little certificate printed out that shows you took that course. I've never been asked to show that either. But I do pay the admissions, and we do not camp on the islands without making a reservation, which we tend not to do because you don't necessarily know when you're going to be at what island when you're sailing. So I sleep on my boat, so that's not an issue. But if you wanted to sleep and you can only camp at the designated campgrounds, like you see here where the little tents are, like here and here, then you need to contact the park service and look at their process for making reservations, etc. All right, so let's talk about the anchorages. Tiger Key and Picnic Key, they're kind of like sister keys. They're right next to one another, separated by this little channel. I was just up at Tiger Key, and this anchorage up here, this is definitely a fabulous anchorage. It's beautiful. Again, there's decent water in front of it here. I really had no trouble like going aground there at all coming in. Nice sand beach. It has suffered from Hurricane Ian. A lot of the vegetation here has kind of been denuded. The mangroves in there are alive, but kind of bare, so they're coming back. Again, they were still okay, but it did suffer some damage there. Lovely to anchor anywhere along here at all. You can also anchor out here and swing and get even more winds that you can take. But again, you can see the directions that this is good and bad from. It's good from the south because of this shore here, if you were at least a little offshore here. Anything with west in it, southwest, west, northwest, you're good. North, you can kind of get some protection behind here, which isn't bad. If it goes northeast, you're going to start to get an onshore breeze here and wave action, so probably that's not good. But I'd say anything from north to south going through the west, it's a good choice for you, and a beautiful anchorage. You won't be upset when you're there. And it's, again, by a lot of lovely little passages to sail through in the mangroves, which I'm not going to talk about now. But that's one of the things I love to do, is just go on these little sails through these mazes in the mangrove, which you can do. A lot of people wonder if it'll be deep enough. You'd be surprised. There's all sorts of deep enough water in there. You can tell looking at a chart, but you can also tell looking at pictures like this. If it's greenish, there's enough water there for a small sailboat, centerboard sailboat. When it starts to get whitish, like up in here, that's kind of shallow. You're looking at the bottom. That's going to dry out at low tide. There's maybe only a foot of water or less there, which I sail in sometimes, but you're probably not gonna be sailing there. But if you look at these mangrove channels, look at all that dark green water. It's I could show you videos, or if you go to my site, if you know it, you'll see videos of me going through there all the time. So anyway, Tiger Key, definitely great place to anchor. Picnic, you can also anchor at. It's got this nice long beach. Again, you start to get to learn how to read the bottom looking at these satellite photos. That's all shallow water there of different quality. Some of it's a little oystery or rocky and you don't like it. So the best anchoring would be up on this end here, where they're a little less. You also have this little beach up here. And technically, all along here also, nice. Again, what I don't like about that, this is a major thoroughfare here. There are boats coming through there fairly regularly. I don't like to anchor in such places for fear of collision and, at a minimum, wakes and disruption. But along here is fine. Now, it's a popular place for people to kayak to and set up their camp with reservations from the park. Now, technically, if you're on your boat, they can't say anything to you. However, if you read the regulations of the park closely, it'll tell you that if a campsite is occupied, you're not supposed to be, and I forget the number of feet, but it's like a quarter mile. It's probably 1,500 feet or something. So technically, if anyone is camping there, you're supposed to be far away where you're not going to disturb them. Now, I've never had campers that we've been by ask us to leave or even concerned that we're there, because we're a quiet, peaceful group. If you're just one or two people and you're not bothering them, they're not going to make a stink. Probably. If they do, be polite and leave, because that's technically the regulation. If a ranger comes by and he asks you to go further away, have a plan B. That's not by a campground that you can go to, and don't give the ranger a hard time. That's his job. All right, so there's two other places. We're coming down now past Indian Key. There's a campsite on here. I was just by here again the other day. I don't think it's a great place to anchor at. You're in the middle of a major thoroughfare. You're in the open here in terms of getting waves, etc. The beaches weren't that great, so I'm not going to include that. You can check it out if you like. You can stay there, but it's not one I recommend. But if I come just a little farther south here, I get to Kingston Key. And Kingston Key has a really nice feature. Well, one is this part is shaped like a heart, so you can really see it on a map easily, the heart-shaped island. But the part that's most interesting for me is right up at the top here. And all but basically an east-northeast wind. Boy, do you get protection in there. It's a very protected little hole. And the beach here is fairly steep. It's kind of almost a steep hill to climb up. But there's deep water right in front of it for quite a few boats, at least a half a dozen or more. It is shallow over here, so it's a little muddy and shallow over there. So you do have to kind of come and go, closer to shore here. But I've never had a problem. I think one super low tide we were trying to get out at, there's only a trickle through here. But most of us managed to get out just fine, either sailing or rowing. So I've never had a problem there. So that is a lovely anchorage. Definitely a nice place to stop. It's also a good place at the beginning or end of your trip. I sometimes use this as a collection point if I'm with a group for people that are launching out of Everglades City. It's a very short, it's not 2 hours at the most, hour and a half usually, run or less down to here. So it's a nice place to collect. Now, same thing when you're going home. If you want to be close to your pull-out place, so you can play the tides right. It's a nice place to kind of come and be the night before you're going home, and then you're very close to you just have a little 2-hour sail to get back. So that's a nice beginning and end place for people that don't want to go very far. I think it's about 6 nautical miles from the ramp at Everglades City. A place I haven't stayed at extended stay, but I thought it was a nice place to land. I went there during the day. Is right here and here, and this is right off of Jack Daniels Key. It's a little baby key off of it. I'll zoom in. Boy, look at that sand beach there, and the one up further to the northeast. The water's pretty shallow in front of it, but we were able to get in, and it wasn't high tide. Again, just pay attention to your tides. So if a wind was from the south, the southeast, east, it wouldn't be a bad little place at all. Have a nice beach to be on, and a nice location. Very, very kind of protected and beautiful area down here. There's similar key over here. I have not stayed here, but if you look at the one just to the east of it there, it does have a sand beach there that you could approach from the different sides. Not a great choice, but it's a possibility. Coming next, you've got Jewel Key. Again, this is a designated campground for the park, so if people are there and you've got other options, give them their privacy. If not, be very, very gentle so you don't piss them off. And it's just the right thing to do. You can anchor on either side of that kind of sand spit in the middle here. This side's probably a little bit better. Water here, you can see all this over here, and if you look in the water, again, it's amazing what you can see with satellite. You can see more debris there. Also, look how good you can see that. But up at that far end on the north, looks a little deeper and less debris. So a boat or two, right up there would be fine. But over on the east side, which is where most people land, less obstructions. But again, a lot of shallow water kind of protecting it. Again, I've sailed in there, but you need to be able to sail in 1.5 feet of water or less sometimes, to come and go from there easily when the tides are lower. So that's Jewel Key. Okay, as we keep coming along, Rabbit Key is very similar to Jewel Key. As you look, though, that sand spit in the middle is not as well defined, and there's a lot of shallow water protecting it. But I think on this east or southeast side, you could still land there and anchor and get some protection from various winds. Again, I wouldn't consider it a primary anchorage, but it's interesting. I don't recommend this as an anchorage, but I have come in here to Crate Key at higher tides. I've come inside here into this little lagoon in here. It's really kind of fun to come in there through that little pass, and oh god, full of birds, and the trees here just crazy amount of birds. It's a fun little stop if the tide's high and you're going by, but I don't recommend it as an anchorage. You will be stuck at low tide, and might have a problem getting out unless things were just right. Plus, you might be disturbing the rookery. All right, next we come down to a big favorite of many people's, which is Pavilion Key. Pavilion Key, just to get your bearings, there's Everglades City. This is where we went to our first day. Same thing. You can get there in about 2 hours out of Everglades City if the wind is good. More if it's lighter, going upwind or whatever. But it's very easy to get to. And boy, just look at that long sand beach there. All in here. Wonderful for anchoring. You can also get a little separation from people that are already there. Again, you can see the winds that it's good to protect you from. It's great from the northwest, from the west, even the north. When it starts to come south, well, now you're getting pushed, it's a lee shore, you're getting pushed on. So south isn't very good. Anything from the east isn't very good. From the northeast, yeah, you get a little protection up in here, but you start to get some wave action. So basically anything from north all the way down to west, southwest is going to be good. Once you're getting more southerly and easterly, not so good there. But a prime Anchorage, again, lovely beach, very popular place for people to go to. Okay, so the great anchorages start to thin out and disappear as we go further south here. The next one I'll talk about is New Turkey and Turkey Key. I have not stayed here. I mean, this is mostly, I've been sailed by them and in the area, and from observation here. You can see New Turkey here. There's beaches on the east side here that look very nice. There's some deeper water, especially up on more toward on the north end, and that little bight there. Again, places like this are super nice because they give you even more protection, right? So while you don't have any protection from the south here, you definitely have it from the south there. Southwest, west, northwest. That's a nice little crook, to put yourself in those winds. You can tell by the watercolor it's not as deep as some, but that's not so shallow that you can't get in and out of there. You definitely can, but you have to play the tides. So that's an interesting place. If the winds are from the east, and you don't like that, well, you might want to come over here to Turkey Key. And same thing, you can see if I zoom in here, there's a bunch of boats here, and they're there for a reason. It's a nice place to be. Nice beaches here, protected wind from the east, the northeast, the southeast. So the easterly winds, that's nice for you. The westerly winds, New Turkey's nice for you. It's kind of nice they're next to one another, so if the winds are shifting and you would just want to go from one to the other, it wouldn't take very long. So those are the Turkey Keys. And there's not many more I'm going to talk about. Plover Key, haven't been here. Lots of shallow water around it. But again, there's a similar beach there, but so much shallow water. I think you're going to have a hard time getting there. Maybe this tip up on the end here, again, you see the little bit deeper water. You could land on that north side with southerly winds. That would be decent. Other winds, not so much. And then I think I skipped Mormon. Where's Mormon Key? Yeah, here's Mormon Key up here. That's just north of New Turkey here. You can see not far from Pavilion. And again, it's got one of these little notches on the east side there that you could potentially anchor. You could anchor along here again with northwest winds. The beach on the north side there would be good for southerly winds. These would be nice anchorages. Again, starting to get a little shell in the water. Just pay attention and pay attention to your tide charts and see if there's enough water there for your boat. And then I don't know the name of this key south of it. It's probably Crab Key, since this is Crab Key Bight. But you can see it also has this little finger coming out of its tail there. And that wouldn't be too bad of an anchorage on either side with north or south winds. Check that you can get up to it right. But that'd be nice if you wanted a nice sand beach. So yeah, there were the Turkey Keys, Plover Keys I've showed you up there. And about the last one I'd even consider is Wood Key. Again, a lot of shallow water around it, but I think you can get to it, especially the south side here. Looks like there's more water, and that would be good in northerly winds. So that's as far south as I'm going to go, because as we go farther south, you're going to find fewer and fewer good beaches and places to get out, which is what most people want. And that's about 25 miles stretch of islands I just gave you. Okay, I hope that helps answer some questions for you if you're considering going to the area. The most important question that people have is, can you do it? And the answer is yes. I've done it a number of times now. The key, of course, is shallow draft in your boat. Even if you have a stub keel and need 18 inches of water, you can do it, but you can't go as many places with 18 inches as you can with 8 or 10, which is really what I recommend. Anyway, have fun going over the maps and charts and dreaming about a voyage, and I hope you try one soon.